Hello Evil Dead fans, here's the third installment on how to make your Ash chainsaw hand. Now last time I said I was going to go over on how to replace the handle, do the oil tank, and the fuel tank. Now, piss on that, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do that later. We're going to do something more important, and what we're going to make is the structure piece that holds in your chainsaw bar and your gears. Now, before we get started, I want to give a little shout out to Tegan. He's a good kid, and he watches the videos, and he's a huge Evil Dead fan. So, thanks for watching. Now, you may notice that I did strip down this body. And I said before, I don't like to strip them down. The reason why I stripped it down on the first video is holding this body together with electrical tape. Now, when I removed the electrical tape, it stripped off the paint. So I tested a few more spots and it just stripped it right off. So that told me that it just sat in the sun too long out in somebody's backyard. So I had to strip everything down, and it really took just like an hour or two to really get stripped down. Maybe longer than that, really. So what we're going to work on is this structure right in here. See how I have the gears just sitting in there at the moment, and that's where it's going to be mounted. And the bar, this is just one of the original 14-inch bars, will be mounted here, and that chain is going to connect across that. So this is how you do it. I got it together right now, which is okay. I can still show you without taking it off. Now what you got is like a funky two-shape. So you want to make sure for this build, for this part of the build, you're going to need that die grinder again with a cutting wheel. You're going to need your air compressor, a drill, metal drill bits, and you're going to need 1-inch steel. Don't use aluminum. If you use aluminum, it likes to crack and break. Aluminum should not be used as a support. Aluminum's nice for other things, but just not as a support. Because if you try to bend aluminum, it will break on you. Oh, and you're also going to need a workbench vise. Similar or exactly as the same one they used on Evil Dead 2 when you put Linda's head in the vise. That's the kind I use. Now, and you're going to want to have your screws, your mounting screws, available so you know which ones you're going to use. Now, since we stripped this one down, when we repaint it, it's going to be the model from, it's not going to be Army of Darkness, it's going to be from Ash vs. Evil Dead. And that reason is because we're going to paint it up to look really nice. And it's not a really messy looking chainsaw. So I made sure I put my mounting holes up and down on this one, because his are up and down. Now, when you bend it, you want to make sure this bar doesn't come over this line here. You want to either make it flush or further back like this. And you're going to need your parents' help for this, because bending this stuff is not easy. Now, when you bend it and you come to this bend here, which is the hardest bend, you want a slight C-shaped bend. You want it just to come over top this lip over here. Look at it from the front. See how it comes over it. Now, when you bend it, you want to make sure you keep this level. If you don't keep that level, your bar, when you mount it, it's going to be bent out or bent up in whatever direction it's bent. So you got to make sure it's straight. And your bar is going to mount on this section right here, the one I just showed you. I didn't drill the holes out yet because I don't have the bar I want to use yet. Because when you get bigger bars, some of the mounting holes are a little different. So you definitely want to have the chainsaw bar that you're going to use when you drill those holes. Now, this right here is 2 inches, right there. Now, you see from the top, it comes back, bends back in. That is a 1 inch from here to here. It's 1 inches. And this, from here to here, where this gear is going to go, is 3 inches. You want to make sure it's going to fit in there. Some people, they get carried away and I have before, to where I got this bend out way too far over, and then this gear doesn't want to fit. So you want to make sure this bend is very close to that edge, as close as you possibly can with bending. Like I said, you got 3 inches here. Then here I got about an inch to about 1.25 inches. You can actually make it a little longer, depends on how far in you bend it. So I got it ending right there. Now, you might say, oh Brett, you got this showing here, that's going to show. Horsepower. It's not going to show. Number one, this piece right here that I'm going to install later, that I'm going to build, will cover that up completely. And on the inside, you won't hardly see that because the gears are going to be in there and there's going to be a lot of black wash paint on the inside to show kind of wear and tear and use on the inside. So, from a side view, this little section is where that's going to go. And then this section is where your bar is going to connect. See how that groove in that gear fits right along with the bar, that little section where the chain's going to go. This section later I will show you, it's going to be hard mounted in, and the blade is going to be loosely set in there so I can actually push this back to get that chain installed, then pushed back out, then tightened in with the bolts I'm going to use. But there's one little bend that might be a little complicated. Once you've actually got this entirely bent, it's not going to be too bad. The front of this has just a little slight curve. You're going to want to just kind of bend that curve into it. Just kind of put half of it in your vise and just kind of turn it a little bit. Just bend it just a bit. Don't worry if you mess it up, just bend it back. But the most important parts of each level is this piece, this bend piece, and this one. And I actually messed up on this. You can see it, just a little bit of a little piece coming up. I got to get it back as good as possible, and it actually won't affect the mounting of the bar. So you want to make sure also that where you mount this is in the right spot you want. Because if you look where the bar is going to mount, right in here, you'll see a little gap up top. Well, from here, this line to here is where the chainsaw chain's going to go. There's going to be a filler piece that I'm going to install later, and I'll show you how to do that. And Ash vs. Evil Dead's chainsaw mounted a little lower than versus a Evil Dead 2's or an actual chainsaw mounts. Because I'll show you real quick for an example. The Evil Dead 2 one mounts like a chainsaw should. It comes up a little higher. See how it's a lot closer to the top right here? Chain. That's how they're really, in reality, supposed to mount. The blade's supposed to come up just at a nice little gradual slope. But Ash vs. Evil Dead or Army of Darkness does not, and it is a bigger bar. It's a bar that has an extension on it. If you've ever seen the Army of Darkness poster, the original poster, it shows the chainsaw bar with the extension. That's what I'm going to use for this one because it is the same one used off of Ash vs. Evil Dead. You'll notice that on the scene on episode 2 where he sits it on kind of a counter when he's sitting down to go eat. But most importantly, make sure you mount it where you want to mount it, except up here. Now, if you preset your screw holes and you don't know where this bar is going to go first, you might drill straight into here from the outside. If you do that, you're going to have to cut sections out of it and grind it down. You don't want to do that. It's a pain in the ass and it's way too high. So what you want to do is if you're doing an Evil Dead 2, you want it flush against the bottom here. Or if you're doing Army of Darkness or Ash vs. Evil Dead, about a good 1/2 inch below it. And that's pretty much it. There's one thing I was going to remind you of, but I forgot. Oh, and when you do this, just make sure, trace out your lines, get them straight. But you got to make sure your distance is correct. Like I said, 2 inch, 1 inch back, 3 inch, then about 1.5 inches to 2 inches back here is what I would do. You can always cut the end of this down to fit better. And this one has to be just at the most flush with this line. You actually want it farther back, in my opinion. And this has to be a close turn. See how close that is? It comes out just enough. So where that chainsaw bar is going to pop out, there's clearance. You don't want it sitting right against the body because you're going to hate it when you're done. So that is this video on it. The next steps, I'm not sure which one I'm going to do yet, but more's to come. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a wrist cuff yet or if I'm going to show you how to actually stencil and do the top custom piece yet. But we'll see what comes out next. Have a great day. Bye.